Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Full Quarter Podcast. A lot of glitches. We do apologize. It's been a while, just getting used to the setup, even though we did it on Thursday. Anyway, great week in cricket. Welcome to another episode of the Full Quarter Podcast. It's your number one cricketing podcast in South Africa, from South Africa. So if you're outside of the ASA, please do let us know in the comment section down there on the right hand side. We do appreciate your comments. And yeah, if you would also go to the audio version if you're an audio person. We're live. We've got Full Quarter Podcast on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. Just search for Full Quarter Podcast and you will find us. There's been a lot of cricket happening. Domestic cricket. Mikael Prince scored incredible 100. Lesego Senokwane came in through with the 100 over the weekend. I watched the most incredible comeback at the Wanderers. That isn't a 4-3-8 game. Warriors like being 5 down for not much and going on to put down scores. Patrick Kruger, I tip my hat to you. What an incredible 100 and was it 135? And he had a 166 run partnership with Bear Swanepoel, who we won't see in New Zealand because he's playing for the Sunrisers. And then we also on Sunday they did it again. Like it was 51 for 5 again, but this time it was Tristan Stubbs with a monumental century that led the Warriors to another. Was that game watched out, Tim? Or was it completed?
It was completed.
Yeah, Warriors won. And so they're moving up the log on the One Day Cup. The Lions are effectively out of the competition, but they've got a massive game against the Titans on the weekend. And that's the recap of your domestic cricket. The women's domestic season has also started. So please do check that out on the CSA YouTube channel. And if you do, send a comment and tell them you were sent by the Full Quarter Podcast. You know, just to let them know that we're doing free advertising for them. Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm just gonna add to the domestic setup. We will be doing a general roundup before the final when it all heats up. So we will be doing a proper debrief on all the different teams, how they're doing, and that kind of thing. I just felt that with this World Cup going on, that was gonna take our focus, at least for the moment, at least while the Proteas were still in the competition, our focus should be in the on the World Cup. But we will, I promise, we will discuss domestic stuff, domestic players, and various.
And also,
things.
there's SA versus New Zealand in the women's series as well.
Yeah, but that's been massively affected by rain. Terrible amount of rain. Very difficult to follow with the amount of rain that has fallen. But yes, we will touch base on all of those that is happening at the same time as the World Cup at a later stage, we promise. But yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm absolutely fantastic. All good.
Proteas gave you a start that you're happy with?
Yes, I was on radio. If people heard me, I was on SAFM, and I said, listen, if we're going to win this World Cup or at least go far at the tournament, top 6 needed to fire, top 6 fired.
They listened to you. Or maybe they listened to the Full Quarter Podcast because we did a preview and said, if you have any chance of winning this World Cup, this top 6 has to step up. And they have. And so that leads us to a review of our game versus Sri Lanka. We did a preview with Estelle. So if you want to go check out, if you're still a Sri Lankan fan, go check that out. The podcast is out there. And just listen to what Estelle effectively speaks on Sri Lanka and their struggles getting to the World Cup. They did go through the qualifiers, and you can have a chat here. And later on, we'll do the preview for Australia. We don't have Menas this time, but we did have him before. We'll just we'll go on our socials and re-upload Menez's preview for the Australia ODI and T20 series. Nothing much has changed apart from Marnus coming back into the side, and a lot of the newbies are no longer there. It's still the stalwarts, but Australia still have the same issues. But we'll talk about that later. This game against Sri Lanka was, for me, a worry. And as I obviously spoke with Estelle, Tim, it was one of those situations where it was like, oh, they could have us like 90 for 4, and we'd be crying and complaining because mystery spinners. We haven't faced some of these guys. We didn't know if Mahesh Tikshana was going to play, um, even though they don't have all their quicks. It was a situation of this is something that could be a prickly pear. And normally with South Africa, when it's a prickly pear, woo, Tim, we can go back to Netherlands last World Cup. We can go back to the Bangladesh at the previous. Was it Afghanistan or Bangladesh at the World Cup prior to this one? Or but the because we had two
We could
T20
go
World
back.
Cups in a row. There was one in the UAE. That one, Timber's first World
Yeah.
Cup situation where they didn't beat Bangladesh because of whatever it was. Oh no, they did beat Bangladesh, but they needed what's this thing? More net run rate. Yes. And then obviously we
Yes.
lost to Australia when we weren't supposed to lose to Australia. So this team and 50-50 games or prickly pairs, I didn't trust them. But what a start. What a start. They broke so many records. The first time ever in ODI cricket that a team had 3 centurions, the highest runs set by a team at a World Cup. South Africa has 7 scores of above 400 at World Cups. It was just unbelievable. And then obviously Aiden Markram with that 149 balls, which is the fastest 100 ever at a World Cup. We're just piling on a lot of things. And Quinton de Kock scoring his first ever World Cup 100. That was a massive milestone for me. And we'll talk about that. But let's start with the batting and that start. Obviously, Timber then goes out early. I'm sitting there going, oh, Lord, did he just open up Pandora's box? And Rassi said, no, I got this. And to a certain extent in that innings, they batted quite slowly, but you were comfortable because we're going back to Russell Domingo economics right now, right? If you know South Africa's doing well, as if by the 30th over, they still have they've lost only 2 wickets. That's when you know, we're here. We've arrived. We're going to cause some damage. And we did that, right? And both of them put on a mammoth stand. I'm just trying to get the number for that partnership between Rassi and Quinton. And it was insane. It was a 204 run partnership. That's what it was. They put on a 204 run partnership, and you kind of got a sense that they set us for the win. They effectively said, and this is essentially how this top 6 works. The top 3 lay the foundation, right? It should be 150 for 1, 150 for 2, essentially. And then the back 3 should take that 150 and multiply it into what it was. What these 2 did, they gave us a platform of 214 for 2. So it was a massive win there, Tim. And then, enter Aiden Markram, and Aiden was never going to be denied. And he was not denied, scoring that 108 in 106 in 54 balls. He got his 149, 14 fours, 3 sixes. Rassi had 13 fours and 2 sixes for his 108, and Quinton had 12 fours and 3 sixes. The great thing about Rassi's one, Tim, was that obviously he did it around a ball, but obviously the others didn't waste in much. Heinrichs, 32 of 20, David Miller, 39 of 21, and Marco Jansen, 12 of 7. I enjoyed that. I think every South African cricket fan enjoyed that. What did you make of that batting performance?
I'm sure we won't discuss the bowling and the fielding at a later stage, but the batting was faultless. The batting was mistake-free. If you want to understand how South Africa are going to go about this World Cup, about setting totals when they need to set totals, this was the type. This was 48 for 1 after 10. That was setting the foundation, keeping the wickets in hand, and going big at the later stage. So 48 for 1 in the first 10, 137 runs in the final 10 overs. That only was achievable because of the foundation set by that top 6. There are going to come games when we are going to find ourselves, as you rightly point out, 90 for 4. That is going to happen, and how we acclimatized that is going to be interesting. But on this game, it was faultless. It was mistake free. Um, Everybody came in and scored at an incredible partnership. You look at the partnerships throughout the innings. You talked about the big ones, but take about the big ones. The next one between Russie and Markham, 50 of 39. The next one, 78 of 36. The next one, 41 of 24. And the final one between Janssen and Miller was just the top of the icing on the cake, 45 of 18. So that initial foundation allows those players to come in and play with the freedom that they want to play in. It doesn't
Yes.
put them in a situation where they then have to save the innings. There was no saving of an
Mm.
innings. The foundation was set for them to go into gear five right from ball one and stay there. So it could not have asked for a better batting exhibition.
So
Um,
my question here is: we scored 428. We broke records. We were in gear. You can even say we're in gear 7. You know, like a Formula One car. Does that mean we peaked too early, or can this
no,
team reproduce this for 7 more games or 6 more games because we've won one?
it didn't peak too early because all facets of our play were not of that quality. So
Mm.
initially, I thought our bowling was exceptional. The first sort of 15 overs, I thought once we got those early wickets, it was over.
Mm.
There was no coming back for Sri Lanka. There was no, well, this is a flat pitch. If one of their batsmen gets in, they can make 150 and make it a close game. There was none of that.
Mm.
Once they made 150 for 5, that was it. It didn't matter what they did from there. But because we took the pedal off, because we relaxed a little bit, because our fielding
Yeah.
was not of the normal South African standard, as a whole, they are definitely improvements. No improvements to be made in the batting, but as a whole, with all facets of play, they definitely can be better to close out
Mm.
games.
Look, and we'll get to the bowling now. My only good thing for me was the guys who actually put down the runs outside of Aiden were guys who we needed them to come through. They didn't necessarily have a great series against Australia. Quinton wasn't necessarily there. I think he was focusing on the fact that he's retiring. Um, Everyone was, Rassi was. Rassi is always everyone's the next man out, but you can't kick out a guy who averages 65, right? But then
But
obviously
he
we
was
heard
have
news.
he was having a little bit of a dip, shall we say?
Yes, in
Yeah.
2023, averaging 30, you're like, okay, cool. It's not the greatest. And I love the fact that okay, so there was always this noise about him increasing his scoring at a higher strike rate, and he did that. And that's one of the things that I was happy about. It was for me, it was the centuries to Quinton and the centuries to Rassi. The Aiden century, right? Yes, I know everyone's gonna say I'm ahead. I've always been ahead, and I get it. Fine. I'm happy that he's proving me wrong. One. Two, I'm happy that he's actually now showing the world that he can compete because we thought he'd be Fab Four and we'd have to make it a Fab Five with the youngster chasing the Kohlis, the Williamsons, the roots of the world. But he's never lived up to that. And may this century be the start of more. I don't want no more centuries in this tournament. We need a lot more. And it's great that he started the tournament well because he's one of those players who, if South Africa going to win the World Cup, he will have had a great tournament. Rassi will have had a great tournament. That's fine. David Miller would have had a great tournament. That's fine. They've done that with World Cups before. We get that. Quinton de Kock will have had a great tournament because it's Quinny de Kock in a World Cup spot. He loves the spotlight, right? Just throws his wicket away once he gets off past 50. So for me, if Aiden can get it right, and if Temba can come through and get it right as well, you are now staring down one of the most, it already is the most formidable top 6 in the tournament. And everybody knows that. And I fear for Australia when it comes to the batting. Now, here's the thing. In the last year, our batting has gone at, I think, 6.5 and over. Um, whereas our bowling has also gone at about 6.28, which is so our batting's the best batting, top six from an economy rate, but our bowling's the worst from an economy rate. I think we concede 6.28 runs and over, which is the worst in the world right now. And I don't know where the Netherlands sit on this, but this is a stat that has been floating around. But I think Tennis of Report actually put it through. I saw glimpses of the 6.28 of the worst bowling attack in the world in that second innings when we're trying to get Sri Lanka out. Early wickets, great. It was beautiful. Thought Marco, as an ODI bowler, isn't there yet, but we're going to have to persist with him somehow. Gerald also, Kagiso gave you stuff. We did really well there. And, helped you along the way. Marco took 2 wickets. Kagiso took 3. They shared wickets across themselves. Obviously, Gerald took 3 for 68, and he's looking okay. But from my worry is the Marco Jansen economy rate, and because he's also there with the bat, right? So I'm willing to give him the leeway to say that you, as my fifth bowler, as I see you, even though you're an opener, you can go for 10 and over. That's fine. Can't go above 10 and over. Everyone else needs to be below 7 and over. And that's how I'm trying to see this. And that's where my question lies, is that our bowling towards that middle part of that innings wasn't that great. Obviously, when you started getting wickets in the back end, it became a lot easier. But I'm really worried about this bowling. And I didn't think they'd start with Gerald. I thought they'd go with the Braves. What were your thoughts around the bowling?
I was pleasantly surprised initially because that first power play was an area of concern for me. I do think that he lost his way once the game was won, so to speak. But I do think that Janssen was outstanding in that first spell. That first spell for me was how Janssen needs to bowl when he opens up. He needs to get the ball to come back into the right hander, tuck them up, not give any freebies. I didn't see too many freebies in his first five overs or so. Got those early wickets, so immediately you put pressure. Immediately, he's a confidence bowler. So if he gets wickets early, he's going to be okay. My problem is if he goes for runs and doesn't get wickets, that's the concern. But on this evidence, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought Lungi was fantastic. I thought KG was his normal
KG self.
solid self. I thought actually you could arguably make a case for Maharaj being so important in the setup at the moment, and I thought that he just closed down the door. He just said to Sri Lanka, said, no, you're not coming back into this. You're not. You might be having a little bit of partnership here, but you're not gonna smack me for 9s and 10s and over, and then put pressure on me, then to get wickets. I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna go for just over 6, and I'm gonna get a couple of wickets, and that's gonna put pressure off everybody else. So I thought it was a genuinely, certainly initially, a good performance. I just think it's because of the situation and the game. South Africa does have this tendency to take the pressure off, and that's fine when you've scored 420. That's fine. That's not so fine when you've scored 320. That is an area of concern for me. We will discuss this. I think against Australia we've got to play the 2 spinners for me. So as much as I thought Gerald did fine, if I'm looking forward to that game, which we will in the second half, I'm probably going to go with the second spinner and bring Proteas in. So first half, I don't really have complaints. Second half, not so good, but I understand why it was. I just don't want that to be a common theme throughout the World Cup, because we're not always going to score 420. It's not always going to be 10 out of 10 for the batting.
Look, and to a certain extent, that's the case, right? And you want the batters, and in this game, the batters gave us enough buffer. The fact that Sri Lanka got to 346 was a worry for me because I was sitting there thinking, if we ever get to three, because normally we'd have to be around 350 ish to you know, be on par. So, and you'll never get days where the batting's going to blow them away. So our bowlers need to find a way to be economical, and I think KG, Lungi, and Keshav can do that. The question obviously is the Marco 10 overs, as well as, and I know Marco can bowl better. I really do. And I thought he bowled well up front. I just felt that in his other spells, I was like, okay, like, and I would have loved to have given Aiden a ball. And this is where Timber obviously now needs to come in with the captaincy to kind of now figure out that if Marco's your worry bowler, the bowler that keeps you up at night, then you got to supplement him with a little bit of Aiden. And I thought maybe a little bit of Aiden in that game wouldn't have done any harm, but would already been up against, we put them up against the wall. So you got to give that back end of the game a little bit of pinch of salt. But job done, South Africa. Well done. One out of 7 wins needed. Yeah, 1 win out of 7 needed. We need 6 more. 5 if it's squeaky bum time. And here comes the thing. So let's move over to the preview to the Australia game. We play Australia on Thursday, and in Lucknow, the Lucknow Super Giants. All you IPL people are going to come and tell me it's one of the slowest wickets in the IPL, and there's red soil, black soil. Everyone's talking about relayed pitches. Yeah. Here we go. We've beaten. It seems like when that ODI series, Tim, flipped to Bloom, everything changed. Everything changed. Well, not Bloom, Poch. I think we played in Poch first and then we went to Bloom. But yeah, when they came inland, everything changed. And everyone and so for me, my thing is this, right? Obviously, this Australia team have been on a hiding to nothing since that. They played India in the warm-up games in a series before the World Cup and they got smacked. The warm-up games they got saved because of rain up and about. And in the start of the World Cup against India again, I don't know why they played India. I really don't. They must have had India fatigue by it. But they got bowled out cheaply, and India just stuck it on them. They were at a point where they could have been bowled out for 150, but Pat Cummins and Mitchell Stark had a little bit of a late low order rally, and they got themselves to 200. And it was good enough to bowl. They had India under the gun after with India losing 3 quick wickets, and then Virat Kohli said, "I don't play these games, guys. Let's close this out." So Australia have now lost a game, and we have an incredible opportunity to put Australia effectively lower down in that semi-final bracket. If they lose their second game and they still have to play on New Zealand and England and even Pakistan, they'll find themselves in a situation where they are moving into the realm of a must-win territory. And one thing I'd like to caution, and maybe you can tell me, the Australia that played on Sunday is not going to be the same Australia we're going to meet, Tim. Is that right?
In terms of personnel, are you asking in terms of personnel?
Not just mentality and personnel. I just don't want I don't want South African fans to think that, we've seen them play badly. They play badly all the time. We, come back from the ODI series. Australia in the World Cup a totally different prospect. Yes, they lost to India, and yes, they look like a shell of themselves. But we must not take them for granted.
Yes, I agree with everything you said. The personnel thing, the reason why I asked that, which is an interesting theory which I read by an Australian journalist. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's an interesting theory. His theory is that we're going to lose against India anyway. So that was, that was a given. That was a given. They went in with that because there's been a lot of criticism of the team selected. They didn't play a second spinner, and his theory is they're not going to play a second spinner in this World Cup. They've got their best 11, and that is their best 11. And if that doesn't come off, then so be it. But they are fully in belief that it will come off, that it will get them into the semi-final. And in the semi-final, it is literally who plays better on the day. It doesn't matter about history. It doesn't matter about what you did in the past. It doesn't matter about win head-to-head
Yeah.
stats. It just matters about on that day. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Australia are in a bad place. They can't play as badly as that, as they played against India. That is certainly true. They played terribly, despite having India 2 for 3 and potentially 2 for 4, dropping Kohli with an absolute dolly. And I think if that catch had been taken, it would have been very interesting. That being said, I don't rate the Australian side at the moment. It doesn't have a good enough spinner, which is really strange for a Australian side. And
Yeah.
also doesn't have. It also relies so much on Warner, Smith, and Labuschagne. If they don't come off, it's curtains. It's thanks very much, but we're just not good enough. That is a huge concern from them. So, with all that being said, I'd be devastated if we lost this game. Absolutely devastated.
And that's where I'm coming around, right? Remember previously in the preview, it was we could lose to Australia, that's fine, and maybe lose to India and go toe to toe with England, and those are the three you lose. With the way New Zealand played against England, they become a situation where it's like, oh no, a game we had penciled to win is now in jeopardy because New Zealand look out of this world. And this Australian side, having lost, they've played 5 games since that first match in Bloom. No, they've played 7 matches. They've lost 6 of those since that match in Bloom. And they are on a downward spiral. I thought that last ODI win against India would have helped them. Maybe like, okay, no, this is Australia. We're entering a World Cup, entering on a high. They're going down. The thing about it is that they will be up for this game. They will be up for this game. There's so much history that's been buried that could come back again. There's going to be niggle. There's going to be lots of fights. There's going to be not necessarily fights, but lots of chatter. And the importance of getting David Warner early, the importance of silencing Mitchell Marsh, the importance of getting Steve Smith into a hole, the importance of proving to Manus Labuschagne that fine, you can bat, but you're going to bat at a 50% strike rate because this is Test match cricket. You think it's Test match cricket, it's not ODIs, because I don't think he's an ODI batter. I think they should have gone for someone else. And on top of that, I think they will play a second spinner, largely because it's not Nathan Lyon. I'm not worried. Give me Ashton Agar. I'm not scared. Everyone's seen Adam Zampa. The only problem is our second spinner is someone who we hope is on the mend, is correcting himself after really bad last 2 years of bowling. So if Tabraiz Shamsi comes in, that's where my worry is. But the great thing is that you've got Aiden there to kind of help you cover that spot if Tabraiz starts going for runs. So I think for me, Australia don't have a lot more options like South Africa has, which is weird. Being reliant on Stark and Cummins to get you wickets and do the things that they do now is a little bit tougher in India. Anywhere else in the world, that'd be like, yeah, sure, Australia have a chance because they've got Stark and Cummins. Even with that batting lineup, even though it looks great, Glenn Maxwell looks off color. Alex Carey doesn't look great. So I sit there going, it's a massive opportunity to beat a team that previously to the tournament, you could have been like, we could lose this game. And I don't want us to go into that Australian mentality that you said that they were expecting to lose that Australia game. We shouldn't do that. Australia are bad, very bad. So let's put them away. And even if you go take Gerald out and bring Andile in and say, Andile, just bowl off catches all day, that's even better. Do you get what I'm saying? So we've got options from a bowling perspective. And to a certain extent, maybe that's what Rob wanted. I wanted an extra batter. He went for an extra bowler. And so you've got things to play with. You can even the other one, the fun one. Here's the fun one, right? Bring in Reza Hendricks as an extra batter. Just I know our batting doesn't need help, right? Shift Marco down to 8. Gerald comes out. Cool. Reza and Aiden share the fifth bowler responsibilities because they both are off spinners. I know you don't like it, but maybe
Yeah,
I'm thinking a little bit too far with this. But I don't know.
it's.
Maybe.
I'm not gonna say it's not an option because it clearly is an option.
But
Of
that's
course
but
it
that but
is.
that's like I'm
Yeah,
trying to say, right? South Africa's got
yeah,
options, right? Because
yeah,
Reza can bowl. It's not like
yeah.
he hasn't bowled before, right? So you've even got. I think this is probably with the one game where you would be like, if you wanted to do a like for like swap, I take Gerald out and put Lazard in. He bowls a lot slower
Yeah,
than Gerald. He's a lot more accurate, and you just tell Lazard to just be wicket to wicket, and be okay with letting the ball go with a little bit less pace. And so this is the one game where I would do this. In the first game against Sri Lanka, probably would have played around with the squad. Netherlands probably so, but I'd still want a team to go out there and exercise those demons. But against New Zealand and India, we're not playing with these options. And I would even go with the second spinner. I'd actually use Aiden as my second spinner, just because I might need a quick, to be able to let the ball go through. But in this game, with where they're playing, I think it's the worst pitch. Actually, which team, Tim, will hate batting on that pitch or playing on that pitch? So take both sides.
that's a tricky one. Um, because I'll only say Australia slightly, but
Mm-hmm.
that's because of the options that South Africa have. If Australia had Shane Warne and Tim May, for example, or Shane
Mm.
Warne and Nathan Lyon, then I would say South Africa today. That would
Or if
be
they had Nathan Lyon. For me, it's Nathan Lyon.
you know,
Period. Like, I don't understand
it's
why he's not there.
it's it's the lack of spin quality that Australia has. It says to me there are no demons. Yes, we can lose this game. Of course we can. But there are no demons with the side. The amount of demons we've had against Australia over the last 30 years, there are so many demons. There are similarities between, I didn't want to mention it, but there are similarities between that World Cup that shall not be named. That
Yes.
World Cup that shall not be named, Australia went into the World Cup in terrible form. Yes, they had the players.
Yes.
Of course they had the players. But they went into that World Cup in terrible form. They had to win that game against South Africa. What do? They won
They
it.
they pull it off.
They pulled it off. This
Yeah.
is not a must-win for Australia. It isn't. But it does take a lot of pressure off them if they do win it.
Yes. Because
It's
remember,
that.
this is a
It's
marathon and it's a collection of wins,
yeah.
and
So it's not.
beating teams that
Yeah.
you think are going to be in the semifinals with you or fighting for the semifinals will help. And losing to South Africa and India, you can say, oh no, those are the two best teams in the world right now. And I can take my chances with England and I'll take my chances with New Zealand. I think that's what they
Yeah.
can come out of. Whereas we're saying, no, this team is a team we're going to face in the semifinals. Yes, we can lose this game, and that's okay. But they're playing so poorly right now. Let's actually make their World Cup tournament a little bit harder. And I think that's the mentality that Timber and the guys need to go into in this game, because we play spin better than them. We are currently batting better than them. We're currently, outside of the fast bowling better than them. So even though our team is like the worst in the last year from a bowling perspective, I think if you looked at the last 6 months, Australia would be high up there with
Yes.
us as one of the like worst bowling attacks. And so I look at this and I'm like, the only thing that could happen is if someone like a Stark or a Cummins has a spell that just blows us away. It has to be magical to break this team out, with the South African team out, which could have happened against Sri Lanka, and that would have made the game a lot closer. I think here, if it happens, it swings the game to the other side. And so South Africa just needs to be careful around that. Understand that 30 overs is their benchmark, 180 for two, 180 for one. That's where you need to be. It's okay even if you were 160 because you can accelerate from there. It's all about keeping wickets and building a platform. And with the way in which ODI cricket explodes in the back end, you can get whatever. You got 130 in the last 10 overs. Imagine if you have the Australians in the sunlight for the longest of time and you've got 10 overs to put them away. And they're all tired. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't have a second spinner. And Cummins and Stark don't have an answer. You can put 130 on them, just like you did Sri Lanka. There's no reason why you can't do to what you do to Australia what you did to Sri Lanka. And it would make a massive statement because then you walk into every game with everybody fearing you. It's not a place we want to be as South African fans. I know. But why not be the front runner? Why not be the monster in the corner? Why not be the monster under the bed? Tell teams to look under the bed and they'll find you. Be that. That's what I think this Proteas team should be, Tim.
Confront the pressure. Confront it.
No, take the mantle.
No.
Take the mantle on.
I mean,
if we're the best team in this tournament, we pop out our chests. We do the whole Nadal. You know Nadal and his opponents in the final, right?
Yes,
Nadal's busy running around in the corner behind them, and your little poor Holgarun is standing there looking. He's like, oh, he's the idol. Why is he running up and down? Should I also be stretching? That's how you beat teams. Do what the Springboks do. They sing Guichos in the tunnel next to the team. They'll be doing that on Sunday against France, trying to scare them, make them think that, oh, but these guys are happy. Why are they singing? Why are they doing this? Be that, own it. That's what Australia did for like 20 years in cricket. They just owned the fact that they're the best team in the world, and they won games before they even got onto the field. This time, we meet them at a point where they're at their lowest in ODI cricket. Former world champions looking horrible. And we've beaten them in 2019. We love beating Australia in World Cups. Can we just continue? We beat Australia, and this is the problem about this, right? Remember the 2019 World Cup, we were like horrible, and we beat an Australian team that was actually quite good. The roles are reversed now, and that's the only thing you need to worry about, and you just need to manage the game, manage the emotions, and if you're bowling first, manage that. And that's the next question for me, Tim. Win the toss and luck now, what do you do?
So I was looking at this. I would like to, in general, in the moment, bat first, put the pressure on, and say go on, chase. But luck now does seem a little bit different. It does seem potentially a little bit different. It does seem potentially you could bowl first. It's whether you can get the amount of assistance early on, because at the moment what's happening is it needs to be nighttime. It seems to be before there's considerable assistance, whether it's bounce or
swing,
turn
or
swing.
Okay.
So it's a difficult one. I don't think there's
but
an absolute.
Given us an answer. I think this is a day and night game, right? Yes.
Yes.
It's a day and night game, right? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So win the toss, bat first. Put them under pressure. Yeah. And then let your bowlers get the best of the conditions. My only worry is the low scoring nature of that ground and that pitch. Historically, with the IPL and everything else, we've watched teams defend very low totals, which is why I'd like to be batting first on my end, right? I don't want the extra drama of it's a low total and we are 5 down for 90 and it's a mess, right? I'd rather be 5 down going, okay, let's try put something up because we know this is a low scoring ground, and whatever we put up, the chances are we can defend, not the other way around. And so, I'd like us to bat first. And I hope our batters understand that it is a low scoring ground. I hope our batters understand that even if it's a 280, there could possibly be a winning score. There hasn't been a lot of ODI cricket being played there. We've seen IPL, I think the lowest scores in the IPL come from that ground. Like teams defend 120 and lower. So essentially, That's where I'm thinking. Don't panic. Just go with the slowness. Look for the singles, look for the ones and twos. The boundaries will come as the bowling side makes a mistake. Rather put a pressure on the bowling side that they're not necessarily able to take wickets, and then they'll be making mistakes trying to be aggressive, then you be aggressive up front. The way we batted in I don't know, where do we play thingy? Was Delhi. The way we bat in Delhi is different to this, right? The ball will come onto the bat. It'll be nice. It'll be easy for you to put away in the fours. So at the 10 over mark, if we're like 60, 70, there, don't be too worried. I think if we're 70 or above, it'd be great. But I think it might be 50, 60. And even at 20 overs, if we get to 100, don't panic. Even if we get to 150 at 30 overs, please do not panic. The issue is you need enough wickets, and I think that's what might be the winning here. The winner here is whoever has wickets in the final 15 overs of the game gives themselves license to be a little bit more aggressive. And that with the way Klaasen and Miller and Janssen were batting, that's the type of aggression we want. And if we can replicate that in this form on this slow pick wicket, that's going to be slow. There's going to be catches in the deep because the ball's going to come off the bat slowly. But if you can be aggressive with wickets in the hut, in the final 10 overs, there's no reason why you can't score 100, 120 and push that 280 to 300, 320. And then you have the game. And then you have a chance to win the game.
And a slower wicket, you can be aggressive without hitting the ball in the air. On a slower wicket, you don't necessarily have to hit it into the stands. You can look for spaces. You can get 4 twos. That's 8 and a single. That's 9 and over.
Yeah,
that's without even having a.
Blinking
There are going to be situations when that is going to be a possibility. I don't think teams, when pitches are slower, are aware of that situation. They still feel the need to clear the boundary.
That's a Timber Bavuma type of a game. That's a Timber type of game, and I think Timber's going to be so key to this. If he manages to get through those first few overs, the ball's doing a little bit, I think Timber's going to score a lot of runs on this pitch. And then on top of that, everyone then bats around him. Even Rassie as well. Timber and Rassie, in these conditions, they're second to none. And it's going to be great to see. So even if they lose wickets early, guys, Quinton, Aiden, they're adaptable. David Miller, adaptable. And so it's going to be quite interesting to see it's effectively South African team is arriving, waiting for a response from Australia. Are Australia going to be like, we can lose this too, or they're going to come and bite back? And I think I'd rather put them under pressure in the second innings to say that no, we put 320 up. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Tim, I'm not going to go to predictions because we both know what's going to happen. However, is there one player on Australia that if he has a good game, gives them a chance to win?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I'm going to have to go with the bowler. I'm going to have to go with Stark. When we did speak to Manners, I was not sure that he was going to play every game because I thought that Australia's obsession with their all-round options were going to make it
the Cameron
potentially difficult to play him every single game. But I do think he becomes a very, very important player now, particularly when you got people like Mitchell Marsh and Cameron Green who are not having great periods at the moment. So Stark blows us away. So if we are 30 for 3, I think we could. I back us to recover from that, but there is potential, but we might not.
Yeah, he closes the game for them. He closes the gap. And he shuts the door, so he takes that out.
Yeah,
he takes that out. So I'm with you there. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I would have thought you would have gone for Zampa as a spinner if he finds a way. He hasn't found a way.
I've never rated him. I don't understand how Zampa gets wickets. I've never rated him. I don't know how he gets wickets. I know he gets wickets.
Time is bad balls. That's how he gets wickets. You can mistime a ball for 4. You can also mistime a ball to long on or long off or to cow corner or wherever it is and get caught. So yeah, that's but like, and I know South Africans, but there'll be a day. Everyone says South Africans don't know how to play spin. Well, this batting lineup can. So hopefully they will do me right, and I think it's the right time to close out the show. Good luck to the Proteas. Hopefully you play spin well, you put them under pressure, and you play like the best team in the World Cup that you are. There's probably 2 other teams that you can compete with, right? That can compete with you right now, and it's not Australia. It's definitely not England. It's actually New Zealand and India, but you should beat Australia. Enjoy the game against Australia, everybody. We've given a bit of a preview of that, and we'll be back with more content next week or during the week if we can. We'll probably going through the World Cup, probably going through talking about our next opponents, which is the Netherlands, which is also a must win, essentially. It's tough. It's a marathon. Remember that a loss is not the end of the world, but it's a massively missed opportunity. But we're not going to do that because the Proteas are going to go 2-0. And the next time we speak to you, they'll be 2-0 in this tournament, sitting pretty at the top with a target on their back. Good luck to Timber and the rest of his team for that game. It's a massive one. And I know that you guys are always love beating Australia. We love it too. Please do us a favor and do right and beat them again. Remember, you can follow us on X at Full Quarter Pod. Also subscribe to the 101 Sports Radio YouTube channel. Also, if you're an audio person, please like, subscribe, and not subscribe, like, follow, and leave a comment and rate us 5 stars, please. If not, just keep it to yourself. Outside of that, from myself and Tim, it's goodbye and lesale kakahiso.